Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast that's been dedicated to bringing you the highs and lows of crushes, but we're shaking things up to crush on a whole decade. Yep, we're here to talk all things 90s by breaking it down year by year with some familiar faces, well, voices, like today's guest and Crushgasm's first, Matt Getic. He's not only my ride or die, my partner in crime, but also the co-host of Happen in the 90s, who would leave me in a heartbeat for comedian extraordinaire Dan Soder. Matt, how are you?
Great, and yeah, in a heartbeat. So Dan, call me.
No, he won't, but so before we get this started, can you tell us a little bit about Happen in the 90s and where we can find you and the podcast online?
Yeah, Happen in the 90s is a show that I do with my buddy Steve, and we grew up together. We grew up in the 90s together, appropriately, and all we do is talk about stuff from the 90s, TV shows, movies, pop culture stuff like OJ, anything really, and break it down, reminisce, and let people know what it was like to grow up in the 90s.
All right, shout out to OJ, I guess, who was the first
What's
person
up,
in the
Juice,
90s.
man, Juice.
Okay, so let's set the scene for everyone. Where was little Matt Getic in 1990?
I was in a small Pennsylvania town called Huntingdon, 7 years old, loving life, blonde,
Okay.
still skinny, hadn't gotten fat yet. And I was entering a movie theater in downtown, right across from OIP.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Well, I was only 3, so I think I was potty trained by then. I hope. I don't know. I'd have to double check with my mom, but that's where I was dealing with in Cabazon, so miles away on the other side of the country. But today we look back at the 90s as such an amazing time. But did you feel that at 7 years old? Did it feel wonderful?
Yeah, I mean, it felt awesome, to be 7 years old at that time. But I think it just feels awesome to be 7 years old.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you don't know how shitty it's gonna get yet.
Because, I mean, let's face it, this was the year that sort of launched a whole new era of pop culture. Shows like Beverly Hills 90210, Fresh Prince, and even Blossom were diving into new facets of what it meant to be a teen. And movies like Kindergarten Cop owned the box office, and no one could stop voguing. For you, though, your favorite pop culture aspect of 1990 was the first ever Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie,
Yeah.
But why?
Just at the time, I was young, and at that age, I was into collecting things. Toys, baseball, anything you could collect as a kid back then. Mainly Ninja Turtles. So it was a cartoon. If you lived in a freaking, tunnel someplace and don't know what Ninja Turtles are, it was just like a toy, a cartoon, and I was super into all that. Then, in 1990, this movie came out, which was live action. There were real people, real Ninja Turtles. You could touch these things, apparently. They're talking. And I went to see this thing, and it was just like a mind blow in so many ways for me as a little kid.
Yeah, I think it's a really good movie, especially from toy and cartoon to live action. Sometimes that can go very wrong,
Yeah.
but this went very right. But at 7, did you comprehend that it was people in suits, or were you like, oh my god?
No, I think I knew. I was so into the movie at that point. I was getting, I think you can even see it in my office. There's an old magazine that was a hype tool that they used to get kids into this movie. And I knew what it was, but they made it live action, which was super cool and blew my mind, but it was also more of an adult tone. It wasn't the wacky Ninja Turtles. Raphael in the beginning of it just screams damn at a certain point, and at that moment it just changed my life, basically.
The swearing turtles.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Do you think the movie still holds up?
Yes,
How
without
many
a
years?
doubt.
30, 32?
God, this is not. Hopefully, this doesn't turn into a math podcast. Yeah, 32 years later, and it does still hold up. I mean, there's some goofiness to it. Like, the Foot Clan is basically like their underlings are just like gangs of young guys that just want to hang out and do bad things, like smoke cigarettes.
Ooh.
You know, which I did want to do, which was super cool.
So the propaganda worked.
Oh, I totally would have gone there. I would have been in that gang, hanging out with Sam Rockwell, looking like a pedo in that movie.
Well, the movie is amazing. I'm glad I knew that was going to be your pick because I hung up the poster in your office.
Well, I just have to say one thing, and I'll tell this to any movie fan. Watch the last fight scene between all 4 Ninja Turtles and Shredder, and tell me it's not one of the best 90s martial arts sequences of all time. I'll wait.
Well, Mortal Kombat would like to have a word. But now it's time for a bit of a side note, because since I talk about People's Sexiest Man issue every year on the show, I did want to point out who won that every year of the 90s. And also note that it was the first year People magazine introduced their Most Beautiful People issue. Any guesses on who was the most beautiful and sexiest in 1990?
It's Sexiest Man.
Yeah, Sexiest Man and Most Beautiful could be a man or a woman.
Sexiest Man,
90.
It could be like a Johnny Depp, it could be a Christian Slate, or it could be older. We could be going like a Ted Danson in 1990. I don't know. I'm gonna just say Tom Cruise, just as a generic answer.
And
I don't know.
what about the most beautiful person?
The most beautiful person in 1990? They probably did something lame like Barbara Bush or something like that.
Okay, so Tom Cruise, 100% correct.
Oh, I got that? Nice.
But sadly, Barbara Bush, our first lady, at some point, I'm not a political person.
Yeah.
No, it was Michelle Pfeiffer.
Okay.
Do you think those were good picks?
Yeah, I like Michelle Pfeiffer, Dangerous Minds.
Okay, that came out a little later.
I know, but still, I
but
like
she
the
was
vibe.
kind of like the rom-com queen of the early 90s. So yeah, you think
I'm into
these
it.
are representative. And Tom Cruise, for everyone, I think I've said this a million times, but I've only seen one Tom Cruise movie, and that is The Outsiders, to this day.
That's crazy.
He's
gonna die on film soon, doing some insane stunt.
But you know who I'm surprised didn't make the Most Beautiful cover that year? Madonna. You know, she was on top of the world that year, and like I said earlier, we were all voguing our little hearts out. Were you doing any voguing on the playground?
Yeah, my little fat. No, I was 7. I wasn't voguing though.
You weren't striking a pose.
I mean, I probably did. I was a little hammy. I probably did that someplace.
I'm sure there's a home video in the Getic attic of Matt Getic.
I just do like corny shit, like just do. Yeah, I ain't do that. Like I would just be that kid, basically.
Well, that year, Vogue clocked in at number 5 on the Hot 100, and for good reason. Madonna was everything back in the 80s and early 90s, and I feel like our generation, she was sort of this introduction into what sex and sexuality was. Would you agree with that?
I'd say in terms of just being like open sexually and just being like exploring that, yes. But I don't think she was like the extreme. She was cool to me because she was open about that stuff, but I think by and large most people back then were still like super buttoned up back then. They were like my mom and dad.
Yeah, I mean, this was 1990, but that sex book she had wouldn't come out for another 2 years, but still. But since we're talking about sex, I did want to bring up Bel Biv Devoe, and they weren't too far behind Madonna that year with Poison, and they were this very sensual R&B group consisting of members of New Edition, and it was like they grew up and were like, yeah, we want to sing about fucking now, so we gotta be a whole different group. Could you imagine if this was like Chris Kirkpatrick, Joy Fatone, and JC like tried to leave in sync? Do you think they could have done their own kind of more sexier in sync?
No. I mean, Bel Biv and Devoe because they were attractive people. If you take the fucking chuds out of NSYNC and are like, hey, sing about sexy, it's just gonna come off weird, and honestly, they're probably just gonna get the cops called on them at a concert.
I mean,
who's into seeing Chris Kirkpatrick get sexual like that?
Every boy band has boy band member.
Joey Fatone's all bloated. Fucking
shout out to my best friend. That's her favorite.
Joey? I mean, he was kind of my favorite because I was a fat kid when they were famous, and I was like, he's probably like, he'd be cool.
But what for you makes a crush poisonous?
What makes them poisonous?
Mm-hmm.
When you find out they don't like you, or I don't know, if you find out they're like shitty people, you know, like they fucking treat people badly or something like that.
Let's talk more about, we're gonna use Bel Biv Devoe because they sort of brought a piece of the 80s with them to the 90s, as did Bon Jovi, who seemed to go down in a, no pun intended, blaze of glory with his last big hit until his stunning comeback a decade later with It's My Life. Do you think this was sort of a sign that those types of bands were out, but then again we had Guns N' Roses still brought it a bit that year later with November Rain, but we were still like a second away from grunge. So do you think those big like 80s hair bands were kind of like
in 90?
Yeah, in 90, were we kind of being like,
no, they were still thinking they were on top of the world. It wasn't until like the mid, like, you know, close to the mid 90s where you could see they were like gonna try to cut their hair or something and try to stylize out of that. But I mean, Guns N' Roses, they were doing like power ballads and stuff still in the 90s.
Kind of holding it down for the remnants of the 80s.
They just didn't get like perms.
Yeah. So, I mean, Slash is natural.
Yeah, but they were wearing like eyeliner and, you know, like going out there looking like goth kids and stuff.
So another song that was inescapable in 1990 was by Roxette. If you had to guess, would you say Roxette was a solo artist, a duo, or a band?
Band, just cause.
Okay, so you got that wrong. It was a duo, and they were behind the song It Must Have Been Love from the Pretty Woman soundtrack, which we've talked about this a lot. Why did our parents allow us to watch Pretty Woman? I mean, you were 7, and I watched a few later when I was like 5, 6.
I don't know. I don't get it, and I don't understand why Walt Disney was releasing a movie like that. Whatever. It was weird, and yeah, I mean, as a 7-year-old, did I know what a blowjob was or what a hooker was? No, but I enjoyed it.
I think I kind of understood what that job was. I was like, I didn't, maybe the sex aspect, but I was like, okay, he wants to pay her to be his friend.
Yeah, it was it was innocent. Business. But then Jason Alexander acting like a scumbag. Yeah. It got weird, but definitely, you know, that was my first like real bony moment as a kid, I guess. That's weird. That's a weird conversation.
Do you think they'd ever attempt to remake Pretty Woman?
Because they have no original ideas in Hollywood. Probably yes, they will, but I don't. They're gonna have to change Hooker to like a cam girl or something like that.
I could see that, like an OnlyFans.
Yeah, something like that.
That's our idea now. So what about a sequel? Like, do you think, what about a sequel? Do you think that Julia Roberts would ever come back for a sequel?
What's the sequel? They got divorced like 5 weeks later when he's like, you're a fucking lunatic.
Well, in my head, I always wanted to know what would Kit DeLuca be up to today.
She'd be dead.
Yeah,
she would be OD'd in a corner someplace.
So speaking of sequels, so much of the big blockbusters we have today are just that, and we like to say that it started in the late 90s and early 2000s with Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Pirates of the Caribbean, but Star Wars was doing it long before 1990, and in that year we had Die Hard 2, never seen it, and Back to the Future 3, and they were both in the top 10 that year. Do you think that sequels eventually hurt a franchise? Like, eventually hurt, like, the original? When they just keep on going?
I mean, it depends how long it can be a good idea if it's something you need to keep, it's interesting, but I don't know, it just kind of depends. Some of the stuff, it just gets crazy. I mean, Die Hard 2 was fun. Die Hard whatever was insane. You know, it just, if you take it too long, it can get problematic, or if they suck, it can get problematic. But I love a nice Star Wars I like a blockbuster. You know me.
Mm-hmm. But we also have to look at Home Alone, which we got the first one in 1990, and the sequel was great, but then it did just continue. Like, once Macaulay Culkin was out, we should have dropped it, right?
I mean, that's just like a company that has rights at that point. You know, it's like not like John Hughes was sitting there like, yeah, keep getting other kids. Let's just keep doing this.
I don't think I feel like he wasn't involved after the second one.
Yeah, not absolutely not. Other than to get a check because they used the name Home Alone. But.
So, and we can't move on without noting Gremlins 2, the new batch. Not close to making the top 10 that year, but a classic nevertheless.
That's crazy. It should have been top 5 at least. That movie, I mean, is it good cinema? No, but is it hilarious? Yes. I mean, I loved it.
But let's go back to the originals when it comes to on-screen romance. Who do you think was the better couple, Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore in the #1 movie of 1990, Ghost, or Arnold and that single mom in Kindergarten Cop?
Without it, I mean, Arnold and the single mom in Kindergarten Cop because they were a real thing, not a ghost touching a woman's breast and stuff. I never really got. I mean, it was fun, but that movie was either terrifying to me when those weird demon things came out, or just funny to me. It was never what it shouldn't have been good. I mean, I don't know.
So we talked about music and movies, but we're gonna get on to my crush of the '90s, and that's TV. A lot of amazing TV started that year, but we also said goodbye to some weird overflow from the previous decade, like Beauty and the Beast. Who could have guessed that nightmare of a show would have been made into one of Disney's best sooner than later? Anyways, were you watching the final season of Ron Perlman's Finest Work?
Finest Work?
Yeah.
First of all, watch what you're saying here.
I mean...
Jesus. I mean, is it a good look to the Beauty and the Beast show? No. But it's got him, Linda Hamilton. She's crawling around a sewer hanging out with a lion man. It's weird. It is weird, but he was meant to play that. Look at him. All they had to do was put a little bit of fur on his face, like in his, like, you know, connect the unibrow, give him some fake teeth, and they're like, I believe this.
Did you know they tried to reboot that in 2012?
Yeah, with Ron Perlman, I'm assuming?
It was on the CW. It was a very sexier. I don't think they lived in sewers, but yeah, they did try to bring it back.
I mean, to me, the Beauty and the Beast one, for some reason, I didn't watch it, but I always would be in my grandparents' house when it was on, and they watched it. And I think it was on CBS, if I'm not mistaken, so...
Do you think your grandma liked Ron Perlman? Did she maybe have a crush on him?
Probably.
Ooh, fantasies.
Oh, God.
And 1990 also saw the reboot of The Brady Bunch with the Bradys. Now, it ended pretty much when it began. It didn't last long, but I actually really liked it. Were you a fan of this?
The Brady movies?
No, the Bradys. It was just Jan and Marsha with their husbands.
No, I did not watch that. I didn't like I thought that shit was corny. That and like the Partridge Family, it all kind of ran together for me.
So were you not a Nick at Night kid in the 90s?
No. If it was black and white, I never would watch it as a kid. This was me as an ignorant child.
Okay, the Brady's was in color. It was not
well, I'm
from,
just
like,
saying. Nick at Night, there was a lot of black and white stuff.
I get that, like Bewitched, Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah.
But I love those. I love a classic sitcom. And I most certainly was a Nick at Night kid, like I said. And I watched Newhart years later. But did you know it actually ended in 1990 with one of the best series finales ever?
Yeah, and I think me and Steve actually, doesn't he wake up and it's a dream and he's back at like the hotel? Or he's back someplace else? So
the hotel was the second show.
Yeah.
And then the first show was, he was a psychiatrist. So he's back in the like house with his like wife from the psychiatrist show. Which, rumor has it, Breaking Bad wanted to end like that. They wanted him to wake up and be with Lois in bed. That would be interesting. Yeah, that's what they wanted to do. I think like the Emmys actually did that, like as a little bit, like when Breaking Bad was ending. But I would have loved that as a finale. I thought that was so cute to end that super serious drama with like very campy.
That would have been fun, actually. That would have been hilarious to watch people's reaction to that, because there would have been, you know, as always, 50% of people like, you son of a bitch.
I think it would have been a better ending than what it had, because you know, I love a series finale, and Breaking Bad just didn't do it for me.
I don't remember. Honestly, as much as I love that show, I don't remember what happened other than he dies. Yeah, I know that.
Spoiler.
Sorry about that, guys.
But moving on, were you interested in Living Color back in the day?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I didn't I didn't stay up to watch Saturday Night Live, but in living color I could watch. And Jim Carrey was on it. You always loved that. Homie the Clown. Everybody in the world loved that. And everything about that show I loved. So yes, I was definitely watching it.
Would you say Homie the Clown was your favorite sketch?
Actually, Fire Marshal Bill was because of how crazy it was, but Homie the Clown was right up there. And even, it was so prolific that even my white-ass family loved it. And I would, like, reference it to my mom and dad, and they would laugh about it. So, yeah, we loved that stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely, I lived in a very in-living color house. I think it was my mom's way of showing me and my little brother our black side.
Yeah, that's a good fucking, hey, if you gotta show them something.
She also showed us Martin in living color, Boys in the Hood. I shouldn't have been watching, but I definitely watched as a kid. So.
Nah, you turned out pretty good.
And before 1990, we had black shows here and there, but In Living Color definitely set the bar, as did The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, which also aired that year. And to say this show is anything less than a pivotal moment in TV would be like a lie, because it's just, whew. And I think it took the foundation of The Cosby Show and built and erected like a high rise. What would you say some of your favorite moments or episodes of The Fresh Prince were?
Definitely the one where his dad comes back, you know, like the very special one where he hugs Uncle Phil. The one where, I think they get trapped in, like, there's like an earthquake and he gets trapped in a basement with a chick, and, you know, you'd think that'd be awesome, but then she, like, starts, like, taking her nails off and stuff, and it's hilarious. Man, there's too many. You're catching me off guard.
First off, earthquake in California, total sense. A basement in California, no sense at all. So
they're rich, though, you know.
They probably had like a bomb shelter, like a vault with all their money.
Yeah, definitely. He was a judge. He was like, if they ever rise up against us, it's the panic room.
What is that movie? Or not The Conjuring. What's that movie where they like kill once a day? The Purge.
The Purge. Oh God, yeah.
That'd be a cool skit. The Fresh Prince with the Purge.
That would be fucking funny.
So, remember, I was only 3 in 1990, so for me, it was more about the cartoons. And this year, we were introduced to so many, like Tiny Toons, Tailspin, Captain Planet, and Bobby's World. Were you fucking with any of those?
All of them. Mm-hmm. Definitely, Bobby's World was my favorite. It's a show me and my dad bonded over. And, like, Tailspin, of course, one of the best cartoon theme songs of all time. And yeah, Tiny Toons, you said? Mm-hmm. Of course, all that stuff. I wasn't that old.
And on a serious note, do you think we failed Captain Planet? He was trying to teach us so much about the world.
He's dead. And like that guy, the slimy guy, the little fat dude, I forget what his name was.
That looked like a pig.
Yeah, they slimed his ass.
Okay,
sorry, Captain.
So we're going to play a quick game. I'm going to ask you to give me a couple numbers from 1 through 50. Okay. So we're going to do 5. So first one.
22.
It's a 22. Did you watch the Pam and Tommy sex tape back in the 90s?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I won't ask you to go into details, but thank you for your honesty. Okay, what's your next number?
Hold on, I was recalling that sex tape. Sorry, I got caught up. 2.
2. Did Clarissa really explain it all?
No.
She left a lot on.
Yeah.
I know.
She made some good video games, I will say.
All right, your third one.
41.
Ooh. Would you rather play baseball with the kids from the Sandlot, football with the kids from Little Giants, or soccer with the kids from the Big Green?
The Sandlot, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's also the least amount of running.
Yeah, well, you saw Great Hambino in Big Green. His ass wasn't running.
He's the goalie.
Yeah,
so.
Well, I would have been doing that.
Okay, what's your next one?
35.
Would you have let Ally McBeal represent you in court?
No.
Oh. No?
No, I would not.
Well, she was a good lawyer.
No, I need like a Johnny Cochran type stuff.
Oh, you're doing serious business. And your last one?
Man, 11.
And which of these 90s toy trends do you feel was the most ridiculous? Beanie Babies or Pogs?
Pogs for sure. I mean, they took a cardboard cutout and made kids ravenously. But I had fucking stacks of them.
And did you know how to play?
In that you threw like a slammer on some Pogs. And, like, yes, I guess. You know what's weird? Now that I think about it, I got a shit ton of Pogs. But I think I maybe played Pogs competitively with another kid once.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, because it's like if they flipped them, they kept them, and you were like, but they're mine.
Yeah.
Like, my mom spent money on these for me.
And that you bought, like, ones that you like that had
cool.
cool shit on them. So it's like, you're not taking my Sonic the Hedgehog looking thing.
I still have Power Ranger Pogs in the closet.
I just had a cool slammer that was, like, green acrylic with a scorpion in it. So I just felt like a badass.
The coolest was the one that looked like a ninja star. That was kind of like...
Oh, I remember that.
It looked very weapon-y. I'm surprised.
Everything was a weapon back then. You could probably take a tube full of Pogs and fucking knock somebody out.
The tubes? Yeah. You could have killed someone. That's probably why they were not allowed in school after a while.
Yeah, I mean, was there, like, violence associated with pogging?
I think it's kind of like... They didn't like it because it was sort of gambling. Because I do know they ruled out Pokemon cards later in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, on that note, if you were the age you are now, but in 1990, what do you think you'd be doing? What would your life be like? So
it would have been terrible. It would have been drugs. We would never have met. You know, I would have been a mess.
So,
I'd be at my age watching Ninja Turtles, which is pathetic. It still is. I admit it. I'm almost 40 now watching Ninja Turtles. I get it.
Yes.
And I probably would have been significantly overweight and, you
all
know.
those Lunchables and like gushers.
All that OIP pizza.
Shout out to what OIP used to be.
Yep.
And that's it for me. But I do want to say once more, where can we find Happen in the 90s online?
We're on YouTube. We're on we're on Spotify, any audio platform, iHeartRadio. You can reach out on Gmail at HIT90 spelled out at gmail.com. We have a website that I don't know because I'm an idiot, but I'm sure Kendra will be nice and put it in the description. And just please, go to YouTube. Watch us, because I take a lot of time to edit the videos, so I appreciate it.
And they're very well done.
Thank you.
And if you like the 90s, you'll love the show. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about everything 1990 with me today. And everyone, you can find all of Matt's and Happen in the 90s information below. And until next time, as always, keep crushing it.